Hi, I'm Mike the Entei. I've been playing Yu-Gi-Oh Master Duel for a couple years now, and I recently saw that someone asked how to build Pure Yummy, which is a deck that I've used since its release. Said person's also a beginner at the game, so I figured this would be a great opportunity to make a video for all newcomers, whether you want to build the Yummy deck or anything else. If you're watching a guide like this, I assume you've already played through the basic tutorial, but to be frank, you probably aren't as ready as you think you are for ranked duels. Even though they're optional, I highly recommend going back into solo mode first and completing duel restart and duel training. You'll learn about even more of the game's core mechanics and get lots of gems, as well as cards which will improve your deck massively. Cards like Raigeki and Monster Reborn aren't optimal in every deck, and a very few people play them in Yummy, but you can't beat the price, and you really should familiarize yourself with all the special summoning types. In addition to the extended tutorial, there are dozens of solo gates, and almost all of them have a 200 gem reward waiting for you at the end of a few quick duels. You can even use your own deck in most of these duels, which should speed up the process if you're playing anything reasonably good. However, as a new player, you likely don't have anything good yet, so I recommend going back to the menu and checking out the Friends section. If you do, you'll be able to see a big button that says Rookie and Returner Mutual Follower Campaign. If you enter someone else's code, you and the other person will get a structure deck. These structure decks aren't fully built right out of the box, but they're a huge step up from the decks you get for beating the tutorial. In the case of Gigantic Sparkle, the current deck, you even get a Sprite Elf, which is very useful in Pure Yummy. If you have multiple devices, for instance if you mainly play Master Duel on a computer, but you also have a smartphone, it's pretty common for people to install the app on their phone, enter their main account's referral code, play until they reach Bronze 4, uninstall the app, and repeat the process a total of 5 times to give their main account some more cards and gems. I have already done this, so I don't need anyone else to enter my code, but if you only have a single device and just want the Sprite deck, my code's on the screen for you now. I'll admit, getting through all the solo gates takes a lot of time. You don't have to do them all at once. Once you feel like you've got a decent number of gems, it's time to start spending them on cards. The shop does have lots of accessories, and it's not too expensive to get the ones you want. But if you just play through a week or two of daily missions, you'll have enough gems to buy one of every category of cosmetics. But I don't recommend buying out the entire shop, since you'll need to get a lot of packs if you're just starting out. But which packs do I get? There's so many, I hear you thinking from beyond the screen. There are 3 options that I recommend for most players. Option 1. If you go to the Special section and click Bundle Deal, you'll see that the game has several bundles of a generic UR card and 10 master packs for 750 gems. A generic card just means something that can go in just about any deck, by the way. Different generic cards might be better in some decks than in others, but you can still get use out of cards like Effect Valor or Nibiru, even if you decide to switch decks down the line. Bundle deals used to be the only way to spend gems on cards that you'd be sure you can throw into any deck, but now we have option 2. Going back to the pack section, one of the options is Challenges Collection. Selection packs, such as this, are available for a limited time, and lately, there's been a trend that one of the selection packs in rotation is full of generic cards, which is extremely useful for new players. In the current pack, you can get Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, which is in over 85% of decks, and Mulcharmy Fuwalos, which is in more than 60%. Whatever you pull though, it's going to be a massive improvement to your deck. Option 3 for getting cards is Secret Packs. These are usually geared towards 1 or 2 specific archetypes of decks, and Master Duel will have several on rotation, but if you want a specific one, you'll need to dismantle an SR or UR card from that pack to unlock it for a day, and then you'll be able to buy that pack with gems. Piri Ray's map, for example, is from Time Worn Legacies, a locked secret pack, because I got my Ray's maps months ago. So, Yummy Snatchy is from... Unfortunately, the Yummy cards don't have a secret pack. They were all in a selection pack that rotated out already. Which is where the big problem with building Yummy, and most modern decks, comes in. If you decide that you don't need a specific card, you can dismantle it for 10 crafting points of that card's rarity, and if you want to get a specific card, you need to use up 30 crafting points. If you buy 10 booster packs at once, you're expected to get about 2 ultra rares, which means you usually need to spend around 6,000 gems to craft a single card, if you dismantle the URs that you got previously. I highly recommend playing as many Yummy monsters as possible, plus 1 Yummy surprise spell, which means you need to craft 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 cards, which will cost you around 54,000 gems before factoring any generic UR cards you should put into the deck. It's almost a blessing in disguise that Cupsy Yummy, Marshmallow Yummy, and Yummy Snatchy can't be run at 3. I'm going to try and build a relatively cheap Yummy build for the purposes of this video, but please know that it won't be perfect. First of all, you should absolutely play the 1 Cupsy Yummy you're allowed to. You should also play 3 Puri Raise Map, which lets you search your deck for Cupsy Yummy at the start of your turn. When you summon Cupsy, it grabs you another Yummy card. Most of that time, that card is going to be Yummy Surprise. Even though Yummy Surprise can be played at 3, everyone just uses 1 copy. You get it with Cupsy, and Surprise doesn't actually win you the game on its own, but it can revive a Yummy monster during either player's turn, and it can disrupt the opponent too. I'm going to put in 1 Marshmallow Yummy as well, which can return a Yummy spell from the graveyard to your hand. A common play is to use Surprise to revive Marshmallow, and then use Marshmallow's effect to get Surprise back, so you can use it again next turn. Nearly everyone plays 2 Marshmallow, but because this is a budget list, I'm only going to include 1. Most decks also run 3 Cookie Yummy, which can weaken or destroy your opponent's monsters, but I'm not going to play any for this budget list. I will, however, play 3 Lollipo Yummy. SR crafting points are much easier to come by than UR points, and while Lollipo's effect to shuffle cards out of your opponent's graveyard isn't as nice as the others, it's still a Yummy monster, and in this deck, every Yummy is a 1-card combo. If you open any Yummy card, even if the other 4 cards in your hand do literally nothing, you can still use your deck's main combo. Now is probably a good time to explain that combo. I'm going to play 1 Yummy Snatchy. Most decks run 2, but again, we're about building on a budget here. Yummy Snatchy requires any level 4 or lower light beast monster. The main deck Yummy monsters are all level 1, so this works. When you summon Snatchy, you can place a field spell from your hand or deck face up on your side of the board. This is an important distinction because it means you can use that field spell during your opponent's turn, and because it doesn't add to your hand, it gets around a lot of popular cards, such as the Ash Blossom I mentioned earlier. As for the field spells, I'm going to play 3 Yamusement Mignon and 1 Yamusement Croquis. Mignon lets you revive a Yummy if you have a Link 1 on the field, which means you can summon a Yummy from your hand, link into Snatchy, get Mignon, and revive that same Yummy. Mignon also increases your Yummy monster's attack power for each Yummy on the field. They start out small, but if you have 5 Yummies on the board, they'll each have 2,500 attack at a minimum. Usually, you play 1 of each field spell, but on the rare occasion that your Snatchy does negated, it can be nice to have a Mignon in your hand anyway. Plus, as I'm about to show you, having a discard fodder isn't the worst thing in the world when you're playing Yummy. On to the Synchro monsters, Cupsy Yummy Way, Cookie Yummy Way, and Lollipo Yummy Way. 1 of each is standard. You usually need a tuner to Synchro summon, but the Yummy Ways consider Snatchy and any other Link 1 monster as a level 1 tuner, so Snatchy and any other Yummy monster can be used for these 3. You'll generally want to Synchro summon Cupsy Way first. Summon it to the Extra Monster Zone. This is the Extra Monster Zone between yourself and your opponent. This will be important soon. When you summon Cupsy Way, you get to add 2 Yummies from your deck to your hand, and then you have to discard a card. If you drew into an extra Mignon, feel free to discard that here. Whether you started with Cupsy, Lollipo, or Marshmallow, you can get the other 2 off of Cupsy Way. To keep the combo simple, I'm going to tell you to special summon the 2 Yummy monsters you just got. Marshmallow can special summon itself from your hand if you control only light beasts, and the other Yummies can special summon themselves if you have a Link 1 or level 2 Synchro monster on the field. For the purposes of this budget deck, once again, it's extremely important that you summon Cupsy Way into the Extra Monster Zone, the zones between you and your opponent's side of the board, the same zone you had to put Yummy Snatchy into because that was a Link monster. I'm saying this because we're going to use Cupsy Way to summon Gravity Controller. Gravity Controller is not a light beast, so you can't summon Marshmallow from your hand after going into it, but it is a Link 1, so you could still summon Cupsy and Lollipo. In any case, we can use Gravity Controller and any Yummy monster, because that's a Link 1 and a level 1, to Synchro summon into Lollipo Yummy Way. Lollipo Way will revive 2 Yummies, but negate their effects, so you'll want to use them as synchro material again right away. The Yumiways are tuners, so Lollipop Way and a level 1 Yummy can be used to make Martial Metal Marcher. Martial Metal Marcher can revive a tuner and negate its effects, which basically means revive a Yumiway. Martial Metal Marcher itself is also a tuner, which means you can use that plus the Yummy to make Herald of the Arclight. I recommend placing Herald in the center column if you can, not the extra monster zone. It's the center of the 5 columns. As long as Herald of the Arclight is on the field, it'll force any card that would be sent from either player's hand or main deck to the graveyard to become banished instead. This is known as a floodgate, an effect that doesn't outright negate an effect, but does make it a lot harder for your opponent to do what they want, especially if their deck focuses on cards in the graveyard. Speaking of negates though, Herald can also tribute itself to negate basically anything you want, but this does get rid of the graveyard to banishment effect. Now, you should have Herald in the center, along with the Yumiway you revived from Marcher and another level 1 Yummy on the board. Use the latter 2 cards to link into Sprite Elf, which protects whatever it points to, which is why Herald being in the center column matters, and can in turn revive a Yumiway, or any level 2, but you probably only have a Yumiway in the graveyard. Use the Yummy Surprise now to revive Marshmallow, and use Marshmallow's effect to add Surprise back to hand. Now, link the other Yumiway that you got from Sprite Elf and Marshmallow into IP Masquerena. Set the Yummy Surprise face down so you can use it on your opponent's turn, and you're done. But I wanted to make a deck with cute claw machine cats, I hear you asking yourself. Why am I ending on some red laser man, a Cyberpunk 2077 character, and a biblically accurate synchro monster? That's the neat part. In Yu-Gi-Oh, you don't stop playing just because it's your opponent's turn. During the main phase, you can use Sprite Elf again to revive a Yumiway, most likely Cupsy-Way, and that Yumiway can return itself to the deck on your opponent's turn to revive 2 Yummy monsters from the graveyard. Usually, you'll want to revive Snatchy and Cupsy. Snatchy's Place a Field Spell ability works again, so you can put a Croaky onto the board, which will allow you to destroy an opponent's card when you Synchro Summon a Yumiway. Don't think I forgot to mention that Snatchy can Synchro Summon during your opponent's turn. You can go now into Cookie Yumiway, which flips 2 monsters face down, which generally means they can't attack or use their names or attributes for other cards' effects. As for IP Masquerena, you can link someone with it and Sprite Elf during your opponent's turn to make SP Little Knight, which banishes a card when summoned and can temporarily banish even more things to disrupt your opponent massively. Yes, Sprite Elf, IP, and SP are all UR cards, but IP and SP are used in lots of different decks, and Sprite Elf is necessary to make them worth running in pure Yummy. If you want to get extra devious, you can even use Surprise's Hand Bounce effect, targeting your Snatchy and another Yummy, and 2 of your opponent's monsters to try to return them to hand, and then you can chain Snatchy's Synchro Summon effect to go off first, so you don't even lose anything. I've seen many opponents concede after I go Yummy Surprise into Yummy Snatchy so that I can Synchro Summon a Yumiway and bounce their cards to hand. Now then, because we're building on a budget, we're going to need more consistency to make up for the lack of Yummy URs. I've decided to include a thick Prank Kids engine to make sure you get to your Yummy combo. If you normal summon Prank Kids Dropsies, Prank Kids Lampsies, or Prank Kids Roxies, and then use them to link summon Prank Kids Meow Meow Moo, you can use their effects to summon a Prank Kids Fansies from your deck. And now, you have a Link 1 and a Level 1, which means you can go into Cupsy-Way and perform your Yummy combo. If you start with a Prank Kids monster though, don't summon Cupsy-Way into the extra zone. You should summon the Yummies you get and link one of them into Snatchy, so you can use Mignon before summoning Lollipop Way and have a Snatchy in the graveyard for your opponent's turn. If you use the Prank Kids line, you'll also end up with an extra Yummy monster, which you can use to link summon SP Little Knight later. That'll let you keep Sprite Elf on the board to protect SP in your Herald. Keep in mind, Fansies on its own can't summon another Fansies, and it's the only level 1 Prank Kids monster, which means if you start with Fansies, you cannot go into your combo. There is a more involved way to combine Prank Kids and Yummy, but it ends on another ultra rare card, and frankly it's not very good in my opinion, so I won't go into details here. To fill out the extra deck, I've also included an extra copy of each Yummy Way, but I would recommend replacing these with generics such as Typhone, or Linkuriboh, or even Salamangreat Almirage after you've built your core. Finally, I decided it would be a good idea to include one Link Spider. If your opponent plays Nibiru, let me get that up here, a card which can replace all of your monsters with a single token if the opponent had summoned 5 or more times during that turn, and as you can tell, you can do a lot of special summoning with Yummies, you can actually use that token as material for Link Spider, and then special summon a Yummy from hand or use Yummy Surprise to get a level 1 Yummy monster onto the board, and you can try to salvage your Yummy combo. It's very specific, but anything better would cost more UR points, and we can't be having that. As for the rest of the main deck, I recommend filling it with as many hand traps and going second cards as you have. There is a field spell, Prank Kids Place, that lets you search your deck for a Prank Kids card, but you already have 17 one-card combos. You'll hit at least one of them 95% of the time. If you add the free Raigeki you got from the tutorial, you'll have 16 slots. Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, as I mentioned earlier, stops the opponent from adding cards from their deck to their hand or their board. Mulcharmy Fuwalos lets you draw a card every time the opponent special summons from the deck. Droll and Lockbird will allow the opponent to add one card to their hand, but stops them from drawing or searching anything else from their deck. Ghost Spell and Haunted Mansion can stop the opponent from getting cards out of the graveyard. Infinite Impermanence can negate any monster on the field, and despite being a trap card, you can play it from your hand if you don't control anything else, or in other words, when you go second. Mulcharmy Perulia lets you draw every time your opponent summons from their hand. These are just a few examples of hand traps that are run in a lot of decks, so having them is generally a good idea. With the exception of Droll and Lockbird, which is an SR, all the cards I mentioned are in Challenger's collection, and a few of them are in the bundle deals I mentioned earlier as well. If you don't end up pulling those specific cards out of your packs, that's okay. You'll eventually work your way up to having a more complete collection. I'd recommend pulling from whatever staple pack is currently available, and keeping most of the UR cards you get, as they might become more relevant against specific decks in the future. If you have more than 3 of the same card though, feel free to dismantle it and craft that second Marshmallow and Snatchy, and make some cookies while you're at it. Speaking of buying packs, you probably would like to know how to get more gems. As someone who hasn't spent any money in this game, the easiest advice I can give you is to complete your daily missions. You get 3 new ones at 2 PM Eastern Daylight Time, and if you complete them and watch one Duel Live video every day, which you can immediately exit, you'll get 145 gems per day, or 1,015 per week. Enough for a new 10-pack of staples. The login and Duel Live missions reset every day, so you do have to at least show up to maximize the gems you get, but your daily missions will stack until you have 9. Sometimes I'll just log in, watch a Duel Live replay, collect my login bonus, and not even duel it all myself. If you get too fatigued to actually enjoy dueling, don't force yourself to. I also highly recommend getting the Duel Pass every few months, because you'll earn the 700 gems back pretty easily if you play a duel or 2 every day. In addition to exclusive profile cosmetics, you'll get more UR crafting points, which is pretty important in case that wasn't clear already. In addition to daily missions and the aforementioned solo gates, there are often special events which can net you thousands of gems. These event duels usually let you use loner decks, so you don't have to feel left out if you're just starting to play. They're a great way to try out new decks and playstyles, and gather gems to buff up your existing decks at the same time. Alright, I believe that covers just about everything relevant. I highly recommend checking out other players' guides to learn how to build and play a more complete version of the Yummy deck, but if you'd like to hear more Yu-Gi-Oh advice from me in particular, please do feel free to say so. Alrighty then, I've been Mike the Ente, and I hope you have a wonderful day.